Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel, Magnificent Motors NG. Right, so today we'll be talking about something that's very important, things you need to inspect when purchasing that vehicle. So I'm actually using my phone. I've itemized everything on my phone so that I don't miss any important information for you guys. So we'll start with checking the accident history of that vehicle. Right, so we need to inspect the vehicle properly to make sure the vehicle wasn't in any serious accident, because if the vehicle was in a serious accident, things like the airbag might have deployed. It means you're driving a vehicle without airbag, and we know that's very, very dangerous. Other things that can happen to vehicles that have been in an accident is the frame of the vehicle is actually affected. And once the frame of the vehicle is affected, it means that car is not worthy to be driven at all. So one thing we need to actually check out for is the accident history of that vehicle. So please, guys, don't joke with that. Check the accident history of the vehicle to make sure it wasn't in a serious accident, right? Another thing we need to check out for is rust. We need to actually check the vehicle for rust. And one place you need to focus on is underneath the vehicle, the frames of the vehicle and the legs of the vehicle. We need to be sure you don't have rust there, because if there are rust there, it means that vehicle would give you a lot of problem. You will be coming in and out of the mechanic frequently, and I'm sure you don't want to buy a vehicle that will dig a hole in your pocket. So something else we need to do is we need to run a VIN check, right? We need to run a VIN check on that vehicle. And what a VIN check actually does, it actually shows you what the vehicle looked like before it came into Nigeria. It tells you the actual mileage of that vehicle before it came into Nigeria. So this actually helps. And most times, to run a VIN check and see the full history of this vehicle, also know the amount of users that have used this vehicle before it was shipped into Nigeria. But you might need to pay for that full information. But then there are free websites that can give you that summary. It doesn't give you the whole detail, but at least you know if the vehicle was in an accident, and oh, this was the mileage of the vehicle before it came into Nigeria, right? Another thing we would want to check is catalyst, right? So catalyst is very important in your vehicle. So what the catalyst actually does is the catalyst helps your car to be very fuel efficient, and the catalyst is found within the exhaust system of the vehicle, right? So some cars might have two catalysts, some cars might have four catalysts. It depends, but you need to be very, very sure that that car has a catalyst, and your mechanic can actually help you in checking out for that. Because if you get a vehicle that doesn't have catalyst, or the catalyst has been stolen, it will be very expensive to replace that catalyst. So it's always best you check for this catalyst before you purchase that, because before you purchase that vehicle, because catalysts are very expensive. And from my experience, I've actually gotten a catalyst for a vehicle for about 700,000. That was a truck, a Toyota Tundra truck. We purchased that catalyst for about, yeah, thereabout. Yeah. So please, guys, make sure the catalyst is intact when you're inspecting that vehicle. So another thing you might want to check out for is the wiring of the vehicle, right? So we need to check when you open the engine of the vehicle. You need to check the wiring of that vehicle. Be sure you don't have a lot of sellotapes, cut and join wires here and there. Another place you need to inspect is under the dashboard. Make sure you don't have a lot of cut and join wires here and there, because what that would cause serious electrical issue in the future. It might not happen immediately, but in the future you might start having electrical issues. And these electrical issues, we've seen these cases like this where you just see a Mercedes on the road, it just starts burning. These are as a result of bad electrical works that have been done on that vehicle. So guys, please make sure the vehicle doesn't have a lot of cut and join wires here and there. It's very important for your safety, and also so you don't lose your money at the end of maybe 3 months or 4 months into owning that vehicle. Something else we need to also check out for is the engine oil in that vehicle. So most times we've seen situations where vehicles actually burn a lot of oil, burn engine oil. So the normal thing that happens is when you service a vehicle, and when I say service, I mean when you change the engine oil in a vehicle right now. And for example, like most of the Hondas, that actually shows you in percentage the usage of that particular engine oil in that vehicle. It shows you time to change that vehicle oil, right? So what happens is, from the point where you change the engine oil in that vehicle to the point where it requires the next engine oil change, it shouldn't reduce. The quantity of the engine oil in that vehicle should not reduce. And with some manufacturers actually say it should reduce, but then if it reduces, it should be very, very little, right? It shouldn't be something that's very, very noticeable, right? So what we would want you to inspect is you need to check the oil level of that engine, right? You bring out the dipstick, check the oil level. If the oil level is low, it might mean that vehicle actually burns a lot of oil, and that won't be a good thing for you to actually purchase, because it means it might be one piston or maybe some components inside the engine are already wearing out, which is causing that engine to burn a lot of oil. So guys, please take note of that as well. Check the engine oil level and be sure the engine oil level is not low. Low is not always a good sign, but I'm not saying it's entirely bad. There might be different stories around why it's at that point, but then check that out as well. Something else you need to also check out for is the engine of that the gearbox of that vehicle. Because if you have a gearbox issue, it's always categorized as a major issue. So you need to actually drive the vehicle on a free road, not driving it on Lagos Ibadan Express where there's a lot of traffic. No, you need to drive it on something like on Third Mainland where the road is free, so that as the gearbox actually changes from gear one, changes between different gears, you try to monitor and notice that the gear doesn't actually jerk when it's changing. It's changing smoothly, right? Once the gear changes smoothly, you're good to go. Then also something else you need to check out for is when changing the gear to reverse and drive, make sure there's no delay. Delays might mean the gearbox is beginning to develop a fault or something like that. So make sure you drive the car on a free road so that you're sure the gears are actually changing the way they are supposed to change, right? Something else we need to check is the power steering system of the vehicle. So for cars that still use the old power steering system, which is the rack and pinion, where you need to actually pour in a power steering oil, right? So the rack, you need to actually inspect the rack for oil leakage, because once the steering rack starts leaking oil, it means that steering rack will be bad in no time. In the nearest future, that steering rack will be bad, and it's always very expensive in most cars to change the steering rack, and it's something you wouldn't want to do for a vehicle you just purchased as a Tokumbo vehicle. So something else you need to check in the power steering system is that when you turn, you don't hear a whining sound. If you're hearing a whining sound, then it means the power steering of that system is probably going out already, or there's probably air in the system. So you need to look out for that as well. Another thing you need to check out for is the exhaust system of the vehicle. So the exhaust system goes all the way from the engine, the manifold in the engine, all the way to the end of the vehicle, right? So you need to inspect the exhaust system for things like exhaust leakage. Exhaust leakage is actually a minor issue. You can actually just go to a welder, they'll weld it, and you're fine. But then something else you need to check in the exhaust system is at the end of the exhaust tailpipe, there's something that the exhaust where it ends here, you need to rub your hand inside it, right? Once you rub your hand here and bring it out, you need to check to see if there's carbon, if there's carbon buildup there, which is it would show when your finger is actually black. It means there's carbon buildup there. And what happens when you have carbon buildup there is most times it means the vehicle consumes a lot of fuel. And consuming a lot of fuel does not mean the car is bad, but then it's something you need to check out for, because if it's consuming a lot of fuel, it might defeat the reason why you want to buy the vehicle, which is fuel efficiency. So your mechanic needs to actually investigate why there's carbon there. It might be bad spark plugs. It might be a little issue, but then you need to check that so that you're sure that you're buying a vehicle that's not consuming a lot of fuel from the beginning. Something else you need to check out for is the tires. So the tires, actually, the only reason why you would want to check out the tires is to have more bargaining power, right? So you can actually point out to the dealer that the tires are actually almost going out, if they can reduce cost for you, or if they can reduce money for you from there. But then, I mean, a tire shouldn't make you not to buy a vehicle, right? So something else you want to check out for is the mileage of the vehicle. But a lot of people have different perspective to this mileage, because it's a very, very delicate topic. Mileage. A lot of people have their own opinions, but I feel a vehicle from 0 to 150k miles is okay, right? Because what it means is basically at that point between 0 and 150k miles, it means the car is still in good condition. Only if the previous owners actually maintained the car very well. But for me, I think 0 to 150 miles is still very okay. Even though I've actually bought vehicles at 190k miles and I never had any issue. But to be on the safe side, you can actually go for vehicles between 0 and 150k miles. Something else you want to check is the air conditioning system of the vehicle. I mean, if an air condition works properly, you should know, right? By just putting your hands at the AC vent, it feels cold. You should already know what a good air conditioning system feels like. Something else I would want you to check in the air conditioning system is when you sit inside the cabin, inside the vehicle, checking the air conditioning system, make sure you don't perceive gas. So this gas, the gas I'm actually talking about is the gas, that's the refrigerant that's used to gas up the air conditioning system, right? When you start perceiving that, it has this odor, this kind of odor it gives, which I think your air condition guy would be able to tell better. Once you start perceiving that inside the cabin, that's inside the vehicle, it might mean the evaporator of that air conditioning system is getting bad, or it's already having leakages here and there. And changing the evaporative system is not always too expensive, but it's always tedious because most of the time it's located underneath the dashboard. So it means your dashboard would have to come out completely. So you need to take your AC guy and make sure, tell him to help you check for that odor, that gas odor, to be sure your evaporator is working properly. Something else you'd want to check is the necessary papers to purchase the vehicle, like like the custom papers, so that you don't have issues with customs. You can actually verify that from if you get a custom agent. Then also, so you can also verify that when you're trying to register the car, if you have someone that actually registers vehicles for you, you can actually give them to be sure that vehicle has not been registered before and they're trying to sell it as Tokumbu vehicle again. And you can also verify the custom paper by meeting a custom agent or speaking to a custom agent to verify that the paper is okay and you can go ahead with that purchase. Something else you need to also inspect is under the engine of the vehicle. You need to go under the vehicle, make sure there are no leakages under the engine. That's droplets of oil from under the engine and also under the gearbox. Just make sure underneath the vehicle is dry and you don't have oil residues around there, because that might mean oil is actually leaking from somewhere. It might be a big issue, it might not be a big issue, but it's always best to buy a vehicle that doesn't have leakages under the vehicle. Something else you want to check out for is actually water leakage inside the vehicle actually. So this is mostly common with cars with the sunroof and cars with the panoramic roof. So you need to inspect the edges around here, places like this, for water leakages, right? So when the water has dried up, it actually forms something that we used to call a map in secondary school. Back then in secondary school, forms lines and all that on the edges of the vehicle, on the interior edges, right? So something you can actually do, if it's a vehicle that every other checks have gone through, you can actually tell them to wash the vehicle. After washing the vehicle, it would immediately instantly tell you, oh, these are the places there are leakages. By just filling them, you'd feel those points are going to be wet. So it's very important, because if you miss this, it might be difficult for your mechanic or your panel beater to actually trace where this leakage is coming from. It's always very difficult, guys. So these are the things you need to actually look out for when inspecting a vehicle. I might have missed out some. If I have, or you have any experience in this, you can actually put that in the comment section, right? So guys, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like our videos, reshare our video, and also turn on post notification so that you get updates when we post these very cool videos for you guys. Something else is, if you also have a vehicle you'd want us to come and have a review on it, and put it up for other people looking into purchasing vehicles, you can always hit us up in the comment section and we'll reach out to you so we can make that happen. Thanks guys, and have a lovely week. Bye.